Okay, folks, welcome to Bravo. Bravo is actually my favorite lake, so some of you might actually know where I'm at right now. And it was actually about maybe another 75, no, about 120 yards that way was where I saw not a Sasquatch, but the thing stood at least 14 feet tall. Now, I've been told by so many other people. I'm gonna prop my phone up here while I offload my kayak, so you guys might get to see an accident. But I've been told by a lot of people what I saw that night, and honest to God, that's the biggest thing that irritates me with most encounters and stuff is being told by somebody else what you saw. Whenever you know what you saw, there's nothing that's gonna change that or take that image out of your head and everything. It wasn't a freaking bear, and it definitely wasn't a Sasquatch wrapped around a tree, because I would have seen arms around the tree. This thing was standing behind the tree, and it was looking out like that. It wasn't hanging on to anything. But as much as I love this lake, this place makes me nervous. There's a reason why they call it the Hoodoo Valley and stuff, because the original settlers of the Hoodoo Valley, this valley that I'm smack dab in the middle of, we're actually seeing and hearing things. Um, there's a lake here that's called Hoodoo Lake, and they claim that there's a spirit that owns that lake, basically. And if there is, then it's definitely liked me, because I've done nothing but try to protect this lake. But there's old stories of witches and witches and all kinds of ghouls and stuff like that they were claiming they were hearing and stuff, and hearing the hoodoo howler is what they were calling it. And I've heard it myself. My wife has heard it. My mom's heard it. My brothers have heard it. Everybody I've brought out here has actually heard it, but it's usually between the hours of about 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And this thing, when it screams, it starts as like the lowest, deepest roar, and then gets up so high pitched and everything. It's like something you'd almost want to use for like a metal album, like hardcore music, but it pierces through you every time. And it, like, you'd be anywhere out here minding your own business, you hear that and you freeze. And then on top of that, down the way where we're going to be fishing and stuff, well, I ain't going to be on the shore, but on the shoreline was where I came across a deer that had been ripped in half. Oh, I got an idea. The head was missing. The guts, all the guts were missing, and that's something I've never understood that. I've always figured, go for the source of protein and stuff, but then again, you also think about like the liver and stuff like that, and that's your like heavy source of protein and stuff. So I guess the guts make sense, but it just left the meat though. It literally had ripped this deer in half, and there was no knife marks, there was no chew marks. and the neck had been wrung and twisted and then popped off. And it was just left in my path. There was no tracks to it. This was just before it started snowing and everything. Terrified me coming across that and stuff, because that was after I had seen what I saw down the way. I know I haven't said what it is yet, because I still don't know what it is. Every person I've talked to about it has their own idea. Of what it was. Where I'm still stuck in the dark, because what I saw had a wolf head to it, but more of like a baboon snout. And just gets me going even thinking about it too. But I've talked to people and they've been, oh, that's a dogman, that's a dogman. And then I reached out to the dogman world and stuff and was talking to all these other witnesses and stuff, and they're saying that they're, 6 to 7 foot tall. I'm like, what I saw was 14 feet off the ground. The eyes were like that. And they were 14 feet off the ground. They were literally like a full foot apart. And when I saw it, Mom had just picked me up from work, and we were coming home from Scarywood, because I was one of the roaming actors at Scarywood, and I played the Scarecrow. I was on the news a couple of times. I had my own team. Like, they dedicated their own team to me, because I got Actor of the Year like 3 years in a row there, and got a placard and everything and stuff, and storage for it and everything. And like I was really proud of my work. I dedicated so much of my time watching Wizard of Oz, Jeepers Creepers, and trying to find my own character to mix in between that, so I would go from this happy-go-lucky scarecrow to this something that's just freaking terrifying. And I was good at my job. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed scaring people, Usually I've been afraid my whole life of everybody else. It was fun to see the table turn, I was a little kid growing up. Still a little guy. I only weigh 135 pounds. And then I started talking to some elders, and they told me something that I'm not even allowed to speak, because they told me that if I just merely talk about it, even what I'm doing right now, even hinting at it and stuff, is like almost cracking the door open, and I don't want to do that either. So anyways, about a month or two went by. There was snow on the ground. I didn't get my deer that year. And there's another theory behind that too, talking to another elder, is that they said that possibly that deer might have been a gift to me, because I didn't get my deer that year. And I guess I can kind of see that. I can, that makes sense to me. All right, here we go. Dang it, lost my wheels. This hot rodder needs to slow down. But don't do that. There we go. Oh, my back. Okay. There's snow on the ground, and I kept hearing that thing scream at night. mom kept hearing it and everything, and she was the one who brought it to my attention because she slept with her window open all the time. And, you know, it was pretty cold out, so I was like, no thank you. So my window was always shut. And then she started telling me about these screams that she was hearing at night. And my hair stood up because Mom was with me that night that I saw it, but she didn't see it. She was talking to me, and I had locked onto this thing as I was driving by, you know, just locked onto it. And eventually my eyes crossed paths with my mom, and she saw the look on my face, and she was just like, what's going on? And I'm like, you didn't see that? And I veered off and went into the ditch, just right up over here. I went off into the ditch right where it starts going up right there. And I started going, okay, I gotta turn around and get another look at this thing. And so my nose was so deep in the ditch though that unfortunately we got stuck. And then the situation went from curious to terrified all of a sudden because I didn't know what the hell I was looking at. And so I was like, shit, I gotta lock the hubs in. And Mom's like, don't worry, I got it. And I screamed at her right there. I was like, stay in the fucking car. And she just looked at me like, what is going on? And I hopped out. I've never locked hubs in so fast in my life. But I knew for a fact that it could have closed that distance to me in a few seconds. In the time it would take for me to do one hub, it would have closed that distance. So I was just feeling at this thing's mercy. Like complete helplessness all of a sudden. And I've got my poor mom in the car too and stuff. And I was like, what do I do? I need to get the F out of here. So I hightailed it. We got out and we floored it home. And what's sad is my old house is right on top of that hill. Right there. Where that truck disappears started where my old property was. And that place sold out from under me because I was renting. I was trying to do a rent to own thing, and I was told to get comfy because they weren't interested in selling. They wanted to retire there, and they wanted to do so in like the next 20 years or so. And so I was feeling hopeful that I was going to be the one, you know, being able to at least take over, you know, because I kept talking to the landowner and stuff, and he was like, yeah, maybe I could let this place go, you know, and maybe we could have a nice life elsewhere. I gotta lock the truck. Oh wait, I got keys here, so what else do I need? Let's grab some other juice. And unfortunately, it did not go that way. So, what can you do though? Alright. There we go. Always make sure you let Fish and Game know what's going on. They're basically like the only law enforcement I actually care about. But yeah, they sold out. But we were hearing those howls and those screams, and it's like, I started going out looking for it, and that's when I came across that deer. And I was also advised later that I was inviting trouble by going hunting for it. I didn't know what I was messing with. I still don't know what it was. But to say the least, this thing had taken an ice block from the lake down here that we're going fishing on and threw it at my house. And it was just me and my wife, who at the time was just my girlfriend. She moved in with me. Yeah, just a mosquito. But, oh my gosh, mosquitoes everywhere. See, I'm seeing fresh tracks down here, and I was told I can't bring my truck down here. Maybe it's for the best. There's probably something down here that's gonna pop somebody's tire or something. But I only had an AR at the time, AR-15, and I didn't trust that for what I had seen. I just felt like I'd be throwing a BB gun at a grizzly bear. And so I started calling out for help from people who had more experience than I did. Mosquitoes are bad, man. Stop. Okay. Alright, I need my mosquito repellent. Where's that at? Oh no. I gotta run back to the truck. Okay. So anyways, this thing starts throwing ice blocks at my house. And so I was calling for anyone really to help. And I was told by a dear friend that I needed to make an offering, set out a plate of food, and ask its forgiveness for chasing it, basically. And it didn't make sense to me at the time, because well, let's face it, this was my property. This was my world, my safe zone and stuff, so I wanted it out. I wanted it gone. I was still enlisted in the Navy at the time. I had actually told a buddy of mine in the Navy what I was experiencing at home, and he offered to come out and go hunting with me too and bring his stuff, because he himself has experienced some weirdness in the woods. And I never took him up on the offer. I was like, okay, well, if it gets to that, then I've got some buddies who will back me up here. But I went out and I offered that plate of food, and it never came back. I didn't hear it howling anymore. I didn't hear any sort of like bangs against the house. It still gets me today because I don't know what it is. Now, the closest thing that I know of is not what most people typically think they look like. Most people typically think they look like something with a sort of skeleton face and antlers, but not this one. And so I'm always kind of leery coming back here. Okay, out on my favorite bass lake, and it is very shallow this year, which means they're going to be condensed into large schools in small areas. Now it's the hunt, because they're very few and far between here, so it's only catch and release for bass here. Wish me luck.